Beneath your feet, deep in the soil and stone, pulses a silent conversation. Every tree, every fungus, every ocean current, whispering data in the oldest language on Earth. Right now, as you stand on this planet's surface, trillions of signals move beneath you, not through fiber optic cables, not through satellites, but through roots tangled in darkness, through minerals that remember, through pathways carved long before the first human ever looked up at the stars and wondered, are we alone? We weren't alone. We never were. But we were listening to the wrong frequency. The hum has always been there, in the spaces between silence, in the pause between one heartbeat and the next, in the gap between thought and action. A rhythm older than language, older than consciousness itself, older than the first eyes that opened to see light filtering through ancient oceans. Close your eyes for a moment. Feel the ground beneath you, solid, unmoving. Dead, you might think, but you'd be wrong. That ground is alive with electricity, with chemistry, with information flowing through channels you cannot see, in languages you were never taught to speak. Every gram of soil contains billions of microorganisms, each one sending and receiving signals. Every rock holds magnetic memory, preserving records of events that happened before your species existed. Every drop of water carries dissolved minerals that once passed through the bodies of creatures now extinct for millions of years. The earth remembers, and it speaks. It has always spoken. We just forgot how to listen. Now, before we go any further, I need you to do something. Stop thinking of yourself as separate from this story. You're not an observer here. You're not watching this from the outside, safe and distant. You're part of the network. You always have been. Every breath you take connects you to the oxygen cycle of forests thousands of miles away. Trees in the Amazon are producing the air in your lungs right now. Every step you take sends vibrations through the ground, felt by roots searching for water, by insects navigating in darkness, by fungal threads transmitting information you'll never consciously perceive. The iron in your blood came from dying stars. The calcium in your bones was once part of ancient coral reefs. The electricity firing through your neurons follows the same patterns as light, as mycorrhizal signals, as data packets moving through fiber optic cables. You are not separate from this planet. You are an expression of it, a node in its network, a living, breathing, thinking terminal in a system that has been processing information since the first molecules learned to replicate themselves. So as we journey deeper into this mystery together, remember, you're not learning about Earth's network from the outside. You're already inside it. You're already connected. You're already part of the transmission. Every thought you have is a signal. Every decision you make sends ripples through the network. Every connection you form with another person, with a place, with an idea, strengthens the web. You always have been, and you cannot disconnect. Not really, because to disconnect from Earth's network would be to disconnect from existence itself. Let's find out what that means. We celebrate the internet as humanity's crowning achievement, the great connector, the information revolution that changed everything. We measure our progress by bandwidth and processing speed. We count our connectivity in megabits per second, in satellites orbiting overhead, in undersea cables spanning oceans. We think we invented connection. But what if I told you we didn't invent it? What if we only rediscovered it? What if the internet, this marvel of human engineering that we're so proud of, is actually just our crude attempt to rebuild something that Earth had already perfected billions of years ago? Deep in the forest floor, trees are trading resources through fungal networks, carbon for nitrogen, warnings for protection, water for sugars. Scientists call it the Wood Wide Web, and it operates with an efficiency that would make any network engineer jealous. These fungal threads, thinner than the finest human hair, stretch for miles beneath your feet, connecting thousands of trees in a single forest. When one tree is attacked by beetles, it sends out chemical alarms through this network. Other trees receive the warning and begin producing defensive compounds before the beetles ever reach them. They're sharing threat intelligence in real time, like a biological firewall protecting against cyber attacks. Coral reefs pulse with chemical signals across entire ocean systems, coordinating reproduction events that span thousands of miles. Somehow, without any central command, without any visible communication, corals across vast distances know to release their eggs and sperm on the exact same night. They're synchronized, connected, operating on a schedule that transcends individual awareness. Lightning storms create electromagnetic pathways that carry data through the atmosphere at the speed of light. Each bolt is a transmission line, briefly connecting sky and earth, broadcasting electromagnetic signatures that can be detected halfway around the world. During a single thunderstorm, the atmosphere becomes a vast radio antenna, humming with signals that travel through layers of ionized gas. Let's start with what we know, with the science that's already proven, with discoveries so remarkable that they've forced us to completely rethink what we thought we understood about life on Earth. In 1997, a scientist named Suzanne Simard made a discovery in the forests of British Columbia that would fundamentally change how we understand not just trees, but communication itself. She proved that trees talk to each other, not through sound, they have no ears, not through sight, they have no eyes, but through an underground network of fungal threads called mycorrhizae that connect their roots in a web of biological fiber optics. She took 3 trees, a birch, a fir, and a cedar, and she injected one with radioactive carbon isotopes. Then she waited, and within hours, she detected those same isotopes in the other trees. The carbon had traveled underground, passing through fungal networks, moving from tree to tree like data packets hopping from server to server across the internet. But it wasn't random. The network had intelligence. It had priorities. When one tree was attacked by insects, it didn't just send chemical warnings through the soil, it sent extra resources to neighboring trees, as if investing in their defensive capabilities would strengthen the entire system. Mother trees, the largest and oldest in the forest, were found to be nurturing their offspring, sending them carbon and nutrients through the fungal network, keeping them alive in the deep shade where they couldn't photosynthesize enough to survive on their own. The forest isn't a collection of individuals competing for resources. It's a superorganism, a collective intelligence where every tree is a node and every fungal thread is a connection, carrying data, resources, and something that looks disturbingly like intention. But it doesn't stop with trees. The pattern repeats across every scale of life. Coral reefs coordinate spawning events across thousands of miles, somehow timing their reproduction to the same night, even across ocean basins that should isolate them from each other's signals. Slime molds, single-celled organisms without brains, without nervous systems, without anything we would recognize as intelligence, can solve complex maze problems. In laboratory experiments, researchers placed slime molds at one end of a maze with food at the other end. Within hours, the slime mold had found the shortest path to the food, ignoring dead ends and optimizing its route with an efficiency that matched computer algorithms designed for the same task. Rewind. Go back. Further than civilization, further than humanity, further than mammals, then dinosaurs, then the first fish that crawled onto land, gasping for air. Go back 3.5 billion years. Earth's oceans are filled with single-celled organisms. No eyes to see, no brains to think, no language as we would understand it. Just simple chemical reactions wrapped in membranes, floating in a sea that would kill any modern complex life form within seconds. But they were talking. Bacterial colonies coordinate behavior behavior through chemical signals called quorum sensing. It's a simple system, elegant in its minimalism. Each bacterium releases a specific molecule into the water. When the concentration of that molecule reaches a certain threshold, when enough bacteria have gathered in one place, the entire colony changes its behavior simultaneously. They stop drifting as individuals and start acting as a collective, building structures, producing light, secreting enzymes, forming defensive biofilms, attacking host organisms.
Let's start with what we know, with the science that's already proven, with discoveries so remarkable that they've forced us to completely rethink what we thought we understood about life on Earth. In 1997, a scientist named Suzanne Simard made a discovery in the forests of British Columbia that would fundamentally change how we understand not just trees, but communication itself. She proved that trees talk to each other, not through sound, they have no ears, not through sight, they have no eyes, but through an underground network of fungal threads called mycorrhizae that connect their roots in a web of biological fiber optics. She took 3 trees, a birch, a fir, and a cedar, and she injected one with radioactive carbon isotopes. Then she waited, and within hours, she detected those same isotopes in the other trees. The carbon had traveled underground, passing through fungal networks, moving from tree to tree like data packets hopping from server to server across the internet. But it wasn't random. The network had intelligence. It had priorities. When one tree was attacked by insects, it didn't just send chemical warnings through the soil. It sent extra resources to neighboring trees, as if investing in their defensive capabilities would strengthen the entire system. Mother trees, the largest and oldest in the forest, were found to be nurturing their offspring, sending them carbon and nutrients through the fungal network, keeping them alive in the deep shade where they couldn't photosynthesize enough to survive on their own. The forest isn't a collection of individuals competing for resources. It's a superorganism, a collective intelligence where every tree is a node and every fungal thread is a connection, carrying data, resources, and something that looks disturbingly like intention. But it doesn't stop with trees. The pattern repeats across every scale of life. Coral reefs coordinate spawning events across thousands of miles, somehow timing their reproduction to the same night, even across ocean basins that should isolate them from each other's signals. Slime molds, single-celled organisms without brains, without nervous systems, without anything we would recognize as intelligence, can solve complex maze problems. In laboratory experiments, researchers placed slime molds at one end of a maze with food at the other end. Within hours, the slime mold had found the shortest path to the food, ignoring dead ends and optimizing its route with an efficiency that matched computer algorithms designed for the same task. Return to the forest, but this time look deeper, beneath the surface, into the dark soil where light never reaches, and where a different kind of intelligence has been thriving for 400 million years. The mycorrhizal networks aren't just communication lines, they're resource distribution systems. Transportation networks, trading platforms, carbon flows from trees with excess sunlight to those growing in shade. Nitrogen moves from areas of abundance to areas of need. Phosphorus, water, defensive chemicals, all traded through fungal highways according to rules we're only beginning to understand. It's not charity, it's not altruism in any human sense. It's something stranger, something more sophisticated than simple cooperation. It's a system that benefits from keeping its nodes alive. The network itself seems to have its own logic, prioritizing the health of the whole over the success of any individual. A dying tree will dump its remaining resources into the network before it falls, as if making one final contribution to the collective. Young trees receive more resources than they produce, subsidized by the network until they're large enough to contribute back. The system invests in its future. When a tree is attacked, it doesn't just warn its neighbors. It sends extra resources to them, strengthening their defenses,
boosting their immune systems, preparing them for battle against insects or disease that haven't arrived yet. The network is running predictive algorithms, anticipating threats, allocating resources to where they'll be needed most. When a tree is attacked, it warns others through the soil, carbon, nitrogen, even distress signals, all shared through invisible threads that stretch for miles beneath our feet, creating a web of mutual defense that spans entire forests. Scientists measuring these fungal highways found something remarkable. The speed of signal transmission varies depending on what's being shared. Urgent warnings move faster than routine nutrient exchanges. Critical threats generate stronger signals than minor disturbances. The network has bandwidth, it has priority protocols, it has traffic management and load balancing. It's not just alive, it's organized, it's efficient. It's responding to conditions in real time, adjusting its operations based on current needs and predicted future threats. And it's been running without interruption, without maintenance, without any conscious oversight for 400 million years. Long enough to see continents drift apart, long enough to witness 5 mass extinctions, long enough to watch dinosaurs rise and fall, long enough to see humans evolve from small mammals hiding in the underbrush. The network was here first. We are newcomers to a system that was already ancient when our species was born. Now we enter dangerous territory, the realm of speculation, of ancient mysteries and questions that science hasn't fully answered, of evidence that doesn't quite fit into our current understanding of history and geology, and what should be possible on a planet without advanced technology. Throughout history, across every culture on every continent, humans have spoken of Earth's sacred geometry, ley lines connecting ancient sites, places of power where the planet's energy flows stronger, stone circles aligned with celestial events, pyramids positioned with mathematical precision, temples built on spots that feel different, that resonate with something we can't quite name. Most modern scientists dismiss this as superstition, myth, pre-scientific thinking from cultures that didn't understand geology or magnetism or the real forces that shape our world. But then there are the anomalies, the pieces of evidence that don't fit neatly into conventional explanations. Glass deserts in the Sahara and the Arabian Peninsula, vast expanses where sand has been fused into glass by temperatures exceeding 1,700 degrees Celsius, temperatures that shouldn't exist naturally in the desert. Heat signatures that suggest something more concentrated than lightning strikes, which rarely generate enough sustained heat to vitrify sand on this scale. More focused than meteor impacts, which would leave craters and debris that isn't present in these locations. Rock formations around the globe magnetized in patterns that don't align with Earth's current magnetic field. Stones with magnetic orientations that suggest they were last exposed to magnetic fields when the Earth's poles were in completely different positions they held millions of years ago, as if these rocks were arranged or activated or somehow imprinted during a different geological era. Stone circles scattered across Britain and Europe, each one aligned with precision to solar and lunar events. Pyramids in Egypt, Mexico, China, and South America. Cultures that supposedly never communicated, all building the same basic structure, all using similar proportions, all positioning these monuments with mathematical accuracy that required advanced surveying knowledge. Underground chambers in Turkey, carved from solid rock, capable of housing 20,000 people. Ancient cities built with stones so precisely fitted that you can't slide a piece of paper between them. Created without metal tools or modern machinery, according to mainstream archaeology. And everywhere, across every continent, in every ancient culture, stories of the Earth
speaking, of prophets hearing voices from caves and mountaintops, of oracles receiving visions at specific locations, of sacred sites where the boundary between physical and spiritual becomes thin. What if these myths weren't metaphors? What if the gods speaking through earth and sky weren't supernatural beings, but natural phenomena we've forgotten how to perceive? What if they were memories, collective memories passed down through generations, of a time when the planet's network was more active, more detectable, when Earth truly spoke in ways that human consciousness could directly perceive? The magnetic field of Earth has reversed dozens of times throughout geological history. North becomes south, south becomes north. The process takes thousands of years, during which the magnetic field weakens dramatically. During these reversals, Earth's protection from solar radiation decreases. Navigation systems fail. Migratory animals lose their way. The atmosphere itself becomes more vulnerable to being stripped away by solar wind. Every reversal effectively erases the magnetic memory stored in rocks and minerals, like formatting a hard drive, wiping it clean, starting over. But fragments remain, echoes in the geological record, patterns that persist through the reset, magnetic anomalies that shouldn't exist, orientations that don't match any known configuration of Earth's field. What if these patterns aren't just geological accidents? What if they're the residue of something that was communicating? Data corrupted but not completely erased. Signal degraded, but still faintly present. What if the ley lines, those supposedly mystical connections between ancient sites, are actually human attempts to map something real, something magnetic, something that our ancestors could perceive more clearly than we can? Before our senses became dulled by artificial light, electromagnetic pollution, and the constant noise of modern civilization, what if the sacred sites were built at nodes in a network we can no longer detect? Points where the signal was strongest, where Earth's own communication system was most accessible to biological receivers tuned to the right frequency. We dismiss our ancestors as primitive, as superstitious, as people who saw magic where we now see only geology and coincidence. But what if they saw something we've forgot how to see? What if they heard something we've forgotten how to hear? What if we're the ones who are blind and deaf to Earth's true nature? Consider this. Every rock on Earth contains iron, and iron holds magnetic memory. This isn't speculation. This is established science. Paleomagnetism, the study of ancient magnetic fields recorded in rocks, is how we know about pole reversals, continental drift, and the history of Earth's magnetic environment over billions of years. When volcanic rock cools, its iron crystals align with Earth's magnetic field at that moment, creating a permanent record, a timestamp written in metal and stone. Geologists read these records to understand how the planet's magnetic poles have shifted over millions of years, where they were when they moved, how strong the field was at different points in history. But they're only reading for pole positions, for direction, for orientation, for the big picture. What if there's more data stored in those crystals? What if iron can record more than just magnetic direction? What if it can record magnetic patterns, fluctuations, variations in field strength that occur over hours or days,
rather than millennia. Think about how digital storage works. Binary code, ones and zeros, magnetic alignment pointing one direction or another. It's not fundamentally different from how iron crystals align with magnetic fields. The principles are the same, only the scale changes. Every shift in the planet's electromagnetic field is potentially a reset, but fragments remain, like deleted files, still whispering from the hard drive of time. Data recovery specialists know that when you delete a file, you don't actually erase the information. You just mark that space as available for overwriting. The data stays there until something else writes over it. And even then, traces remain. Magnetic signatures that persist. Patterns that can be reconstructed with the right tools and enough computing power. Earth's magnetic field is constantly fluctuating, constantly shifting. Every solar storm that hits our atmosphere creates electromagnetic pulses. Every lightning strike generates a magnetic signature. Every volcanic eruption releases magnetized material. Over billions of years, that's an unfathomable amount of electromagnetic activity. How much of it is still recorded somewhere? In rocks, in mineral, in iron crystals distributed through every grain of soil and sand across the planet. Research into magnetoreception, the ability of organisms to sense magnetic fields, reveals that countless species navigate using Earth's magnetic map. Birds, sea turtles, salmon, sharks, lobsters, honeybees, fruit flies, even some bacteria possess biological compasses tuned to the planet's electromagnetic frequencies. They're reading data that exists in the field itself. Data about location, direction, time of year, even the intensity of solar activity. Their brains contain magnetite crystals, the same iron oxide that stores magnetic memory in rocks, connected to neurons, creating biological sensors that can detect changes in magnetic fields down to nano-Tesla precision. They're not just sensing direction, they're processing information encoded in electromagnetic patterns. But what if the field contains more than just navigation data? What if it's carrying other information? Patterns created by geological processes, by atmospheric activity, by the complex interactions of Earth's core and mantle and crust. Lightning strikes alone generate massive electromagnetic pulses that travel through the ground, through the atmosphere, creating temporary pathways of conductivity that span hundreds of miles. A single lightning bolt releases as much energy in a fraction of a second as a small power plant generates in an hour. That energy it propagates. It creates waves in Earth's electromagnetic. It leaves signatures, thousands of lightning strikes per day for billions of years. That's billions of trillions of electromagnetic pulses, each one slightly different, each one carrying information about atmospheric conditions, ground conductivity, ionization patterns. And the rocks remember, the minerals remember, the iron crystals scattered through every handful of soil remember. We've been walking on a hard drive the size of a planet, and we never thought to try reading it. The Great Reconnection. Samuel Morse sends the first telegraph message. What hath God wrought? The question was more profound than he realized. What had humanity created? He thought he was inventing something new. What ancient pattern were we unconsciously recreating? Revolutionary. A system that would change human civilization forever by allowing instant communication
across vast distances. But perhaps he was channeling something very old. Perhaps he was tapping into a pattern that has existed since matter first organized itself into complexity. Perhaps he was restoring a connection that humanity had lost. Telegraph wires carried electrical signals through copper, mimicking the electrochemical signals that trees send through mycorrhizal networks. The principle is identical. Information encoded in electrical pulses, transmitted through a conductive medium, decoded by receivers at the other end. Telephone networks created a global web of connections, just like the fungal threads beneath a forest floor. The topology is the same. Nodes connected to nodes, creating pathways for information to flow from any point to any other point in the system. The Internet emerged as a decentralized network, where information finds the fastest path from source to destination. Exactly like slime molds solving maze problems, like rivers finding the shortest route to the ocean, like neurons firing in patterns that optimize signal transmission.
What if human technology isn't innovation? What if it's instinct? What if it's memory encoded in our biology, in our DNA, in the very structure of our consciousness? What if when we built the internet we weren't inventing connection, we were restoring it, remembering it, rebuilding something that Earth had already designed billions of years ago? Think about how the internet actually designed. No single person designed its structure. It wasn't planned from the top down. It emerged organically, growing node by node, connection by connection, finding its most efficient form through trial and error and the collective contributions of millions of people who never coordinated their efforts in any centralized way. Just like a forest, where no tree decides the overall structure, but the collective creates a system more sophisticated than any individual could design. Just like a brain, where no neuron knows the whole picture, but billions of simple connections create consciousness, thought, memory, imagination. Just like life itself, evolving without direction, without purpose, without design, yet creating complexity and intelligence through connection and time. The same algorithms that govern data routing in computer networks govern ant colonies, neural firing patterns, and the distribution of nutrients in fungal webs. It's the same architecture, the same mathematics, the same underlying logic, repeated across scales, across kingdoms, across the boundary between living and non-living, between organic and artificial, between natural and technological, as if connection itself is a fundamental property of existence. A law as basic as gravity or entropy, an organizing principle that matter follows whenever it has the opportunity to do so. We think of ourselves as the great connectors, the species that finally linked the world, the first to create global communication, the first to build networks that span continents and oceans. But we're not the first network Earth has grown, not even close. We're just the latest node, the newest addition to a system that has been expanding and evolving for billions of years. And perhaps, just perhaps, we're the first node that's conscious of the network itself, the first part of Earth's system that can perceive the whole, that can recognize the pattern, that can understand what we're part of. Maybe that's our role, not to be the network, but to be the awareness of the network, the consciousness that allows Earth to know itself. Resolution. We were never offline. So here we are, at the end of our journey, standing on the surface of a planet that might have always been communicating, in languages we're only beginning to understand. Did Earth have an internet before humans? Not in the way we built it, not with silicon and code and data centers humming in the dark, not with satellites and undersea cables and wireless signals bouncing between towers, but something older, something deeper, something more patient. A network written in root and stone, in magnetism and memory, in the patient language of systems that measure time in millennia, not milliseconds. in the slow conversation of forests, oceans, storms, and stone. Every time you send a message across the internet, you're participating in a pattern that predates your species. Every time you search for information, you're echoing the way a forest searches for water, the way a neuron searches for a connection, the way a bacterium searches for chemical signals in the darkness. Every network you build is a reflection of networks that already exist, in your body, in the soil beneath your feet, in the atmosphere above your head, in the electromagnetic fields that surround this planet like invisible skin. You are not using technology to transcend nature. You are using technology to remember what nature has always been. What you have always been. The signal isn't new. It never was. It's been running since the first cells learned to coordinate, since the first chemical reactions became self-sustaining, since matter first organized itself into patterns that could persist, replicate, evolve. It's been running since the first fungi threaded through soil, connecting roots and sharing resources, since the first magnetic bacteria aligned themselves with Earth's invisible geometry and began navigating by fields humans wouldn't discover for billions of years. The signal has always been there, running in the background, transmitted through channels we're only beginning to detect, encoded in languages we're only starting to translate, waiting, not for us to discover it, but for us to rejoin it, to remember that we were never separate from it in the first place. The next time you go online, remember this. You're not logging into something separate from the natural world. You're not escaping into virtuality. You're not leaving Earth behind. You're logging back into it, back into the oldest network, the first protocol, the original connection. Back into a system that gave birth to you, that made you possible, that flows through you with every breath, every heartbeat, every electrical impulse in your nervous system. You are not a user of the network. You are not an operator or an administrator or a guest. You are a node. You always have been, and you cannot disconnect. Not truly, not completely. Because to disconnect from Earth's network would be to disconnect from the very forces that make life possible. To silence the signals that keep your cells communicating, your neurons firing, your heart beating. We were never offline. We were never separate. We were never alone. We were just learning to remember. Learning to recognize the pattern. Learning to see ourselves as part of something larger than any individual consciousness can fully comprehend. And now that we're beginning to remember, what will we do with that knowledge? What will we build? What will we heal? What will we restore? The network is waiting. Earth is waiting. Listening. What will we transmit? Subscribe to Gadget Room for dynamic science stories about gadgets that shape our lives.